But in Pakistan, we treat our boys like kings and we treat our girls like flowers. I would have trouble doing that in front of a family member. So yeah, it takes a lot of courage. Last part about I am a very hypersensitive person. I don't like that. It's such a good story that you always feel for the underdog, but you also feel for yourself. All of us can see a part of ourselves in him. At this point, we're all in Camp Satya. We're all rooting for him. This is where we're all cheering. And he can find the humor and the irony in it, which goes on to show his strength. Timeless story archetypes where this hero starts off from humble beginnings and there comes a point where he or she realizes what he's made of before he conquers his demons. We've seen this play out in real time and it's fascinating to hear. Hi everyone. If you're not a regular to my channel and you just want to skip to my reaction to the video, you can jump to the timestamp that I'll put here. For my regular audience, I just want to let you know that this video is going to be very different than what you're used to coming from me. This is going to be purely in English. तो अगर मेरी ऑडियंस में कोई ऐसे लोग हैं जिनको अंग्रेज़ी समझने में दिक्कत पेश आती है तो पहले तो मेरी माजरत। दूसरा ये कि मेरी बाकी वीडियो सीरीज़ उसी तरह उर्दू और अंग्रेज़ी मिक्स में जिस तरह पहले थी जारी रहेंगी। I'm doing this in English because I want to reach a wider audience, and the video that I'm reacting to has generated a bit of a global debate, and many people are reacting to it. It's a video that blew up somewhere in May from Satya Magarwal, and the title of the video is No Friends, No Social Life, No Career at 29. And the video that I'm making is also different from my other videos in the sense that my previous series was more about you guys. It was about how I thought I could add the most value to your life in the time that you give to me watching my videos. But this video is not about you guys. This video is about me. It's about something that is dear to me, and it might also define where I go as a content creator going forward, or it might just be a one-off experiment. We don't know. It's not scripted. I don't know what I'm going to be saying through the video. It might be longish as well, though I'm not sure. And the reason I care about this video is because it speaks to the difficulties that men face in modern life, the mental issues that a lot of men face going through these difficulties. It also speaks to the attitude towards men generally in global culture. It also speaks to how the third and fourth wave feminism have turned feminism on its head, and it's no longer about women having equal opportunities to men, but it's more about how men and women are the same, or should be the same, or should have the same roles and the same duties. So much so that they're now, the global north is now in cuckoo land, where you can't even speak to the biological differences about men and women. You can't even say men are stronger than women physically in sports, and even that is considered bigotry. So this video or this video series would speak to a lot of those cultural shifts that are happening or have been happening in the past 10 to 20 years, and how that's affected men, and also why a lot of men are turning to counter movements to feminism, such as MGTOW, men going their own way, the Red Pill movement, the Andrew Tate phenomenon, Jordan Peterson, and why so many young men look up to Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate or many of these counter movements that are going on. I also wanted to speak to this because there are not a lot of people from Pakistan talking about this. So we get to hear people from other cultures, but a lot of times we can't really identify. So a lot of things are very different. Even between Pakistan and India, our cultures are very different. So I wanted to give a Pakistani middle class perspective on this issue that I think is missing from the whole scene and missing from the debate. So let's get right into it.
Hey guys, my name is Satyam Agarwal and I'm 29 years old. I have no friends, no social life, and no career. I do have freelance gigs. I'm a video editor, but that's just survival money that's helping me survive, and that's it. Throughout my life, I have been very depressed and anxious, and until recently, like 1 year back, I realized that a lot of things that I'm doing in my life in respect to every aspect of things that needs to be there in life, like social life, friends, romantic relationships, a fulfillment, is being hampered just because of the way that I have been brought up, of my own experiences, because of the personality traits that I have. And it's not a very good place to be in.
Okay, so we know what the video is about. The title says it all. But based on what he just said, it seems like he's at the start of a journey. And I say start of a journey because everything he just said, anybody who's been grappling with this long enough already knows all of this. So this is kind of like a given. It's a truism. It's something that you look past. Um, but it seems that it's very fresh. Um, it's very fresh to him. So when he speaks, so when your eyes go in the corner and you're thinking about stuff, you're recalling, or you're thinking and verbalizing something. So it's not something that's he's prepared. He has a vague idea of what he wants to talk about, but this is very, very fresh in his mind, and he's verbalizing it as he speaks. So he's talking about his personality traits. He's talking about the way that he's been brought up. And I think that's true for everyone. I think we're all a product of our childhood traumas. And the interesting thing is that every childhood is traumatic. It's something that I was, um, when I first heard, I couldn't figure out. Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm sure even as I'm saying this to you, it doesn't make sense, but it's very true. Every childhood is traumatic. So you either get too little love or too much love, or too little hardship or too much hardship. No matter what you go through, in some way, shape, or form, every childhood is traumatic. Yes, some are more traumatic than others. That's absolutely true. But there's no such thing as a perfect childhood. So, and everybody, so not just him, not just Satya, everybody is a product of their childhood and their childhood traumas, and we pick up personality traits, or we create personality traits. Sometimes we think up, we read a story about someone who was a particular way that we want to be and we aren't, who's brave and we're weak, or we're cowards, or we think of ourselves as cowards at a particular point in our lifetime. And so we pick up traits from that guy in the hope of being more like him or her. So I think what he's going through, every one of us has gone through, and that's also one of the reasons why I feel such a deep connection to this topic and to this video. That in a way, this video is not about Satya. It's not about an Indian guy who has no life and no social circle or no career. It's about me, um, and it's about you, many of you, at least the guys among you. And I think the challenges that men face throughout the world are mostly the same, even though the details might be different and the cultures would differ widely between each other. But I think the genetic problems date back centuries, if not millennia. So I think it's a timeless topic. I think it's a timeless debate, and I'm eager to see, what comes next, and how that applies to me, and how that applies to you, and how that applies to the worldview that I've created for myself, and I want to put out there, and I want to hear from you guys how my worldview differs from your worldview, and how his worldview put him in the situation that he's in, or might get him out of the situation that he's in, hopefully.
I realize that I've been dealing with childhood trauma all my life, and that has really affected my life.
if you look at his body language, you can actually see in his facial expressions and in his breathing and in his pacing how difficult it is, and I can't imagine. I know for me, if I was in exactly his situation, um, I would never put out such a video on the internet, even if I wanted to. And the kind of person that I now am, I would never want to. Um, but I wasn't always like this. It's true for everyone, right? We evolve. Um, and, and and I can recall a time where um, I would identify a lot more with this guy than I do right now. But even at that time, even if we didn't have internet back in those days, so I'm a bit older than him. But even if we did, and even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have the courage to do it. So what he's doing is very hard, and and that's why I also feel so empathetic as well as sympathetic to him. And I think maybe that's what pulled me towards this particular video. Among all the other things that I wanted to talk about, I think I wanted to start off with this because I see so much courage in him, even though he's at the lowest point of his in his life, and he thinks it's the end of the road. But just the fact that he was able to put this out there and push through it, and I can see this getting more and more difficult for him as he speaks. It's impressive. I think there's seeds of um, tiny seeds of greatness hidden in what looks like an unsalvageable position. But yeah, let's move on.
I have been emotionally neglected in my childhood. I have been physically abused. I have been abandoned as well. I have also tried to tell my parents that I am feeling depressed, that I am feeling that I need emotional support from them. But I never got it. They bluntly told me that yeah, we understand that you need emotional support, but we don't know how to do it. Like, these were the words that was being told to a 16-year-old child who is being dealing with depression.
So much to talk about there. So first of all, yeah, you can see that this is tough for him, and and part of me empathizes in a way that I would empathize with my own son. In some ways, it feels as if um, he's a child, and my feeling towards him is like my feeling towards my son. But a part of me is going like, what are you talking about, dude? He's talking about being a 16-year-old child. A 16-year-old is not a child. A 16-year-old is not supposed to be a child. Yes, in our modern society, we do think of 16-year-olds as children. Uh, but it's dumb, it's unnatural, it's counterproductive, it's unhealthy. But yeah, so he's a product of our culture, just as I am, just as you are. But I think there's lots that is wrong with our culture, and that sentence, a 16-year-old child, speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. I think we as parents, most of us as parents, don't even know what our job is. Um, every living thing on this planet is born uh, with the same job as a parent, and that is to ensure that their children are equipped to survive and thrive in their absence. So whether it's a centipede, whether it's a lion, whether it's a wolf cub, or whether it's a human, um, the parent's job is to make sure that the children survive and thrive if the day comes when that parent is no longer there to look after them. And I think we've confused that with the modern liberal individualistic ideal that the job of the parent is to shower the children with as much love as they can, and of course they should shower them with love, especially younger, you know when the children are, say, all the way up to 10 years old. Yes, you should. It's important to build a foundation based on love and devotion and caring for the children. But I think that's not the end goal, and we confuse that with the end goal. We think that's all that is needed, and we carry it throughout, all the way to their. In Pakistan, this goes on until they're married off, which comes at what, like 25, 26, or 23 or 24. Men don't get married before 25 generally, and until they don't get married, they're living with their parents, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with living with your parents, but they're living with their parents as children, and that's the problem. So one of the mistakes that we make is, because our children are going to school, we think that until the child's education is completed, um, getting education or getting educated is the only job the child has. And that's so dumb. And we have 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds, boys and girls, who are essentially our children. And the reason is because they weren't expected to do anything, because they were studying. So the mother would take care of all their needs, whether it's food, it's taking out garbage, making their beds for them, because that's what being a good parent is. You do everything for your children. That's what we think, or that's most of what our parents think. That's so dumb. Like, you're essentially making them vegetables. They're not good for anything. They don't go out in the world. I think it's worse in Pakistan than it is in many places, even in the first world. I think the Western world is better in that sense, because they do give their children responsibilities, and they're supposed to get a summer job or whatever. But in Pakistan, we treat our boys like kings, and we treat our girls like flowers. And what that ends up doing is, they're not good for anything. Essentially, they are flowers. They can't move. They can't do anything on their own. Of course, I'm exaggerating a bit, but by and large, this is true. And I think his words, coming back to the video, his words about they were saying that to a 16-year-old child who's going through depression, dude, you're not a child. You were not a child at 16. You were not supposed to be a child at 16. Yes, I'm sure nobody told him that, but that is the truth. And then that part about where he told his parents, and they said, yes, we understand that you need support, but we don't know how to give it. I'm wondering how, and he said these were the exact words that they said. I'm wondering how that conversation would have went, in the sense that I can't imagine it being as simple as that. I'm sure it's the gist that he's giving us, and he doesn't remember the exact words, but I'm having a hard time imagining, how that conversation would have gone. And what I'm guessing is, because I've been in a similar situation with one of my spouses, where I was saying essentially the same thing that his parents are saying to him, that, yeah, I understand that you need my support, and I understand that you're going through emotional challenges and psychological challenges. It's just that I'm not equipped to help you. I mean, there was a time, there was a big chunk of my married life, a part of my married life, where I was trying to make my partner happy, and I came to a point where I realized that nobody can make anybody happy. Happiness has to come from the inside. It's not possible. Like whoever it is, it's the best spouse in the world. Like if you think of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the best of mankind and the best of men. I'm sure even he um, would be unable to help a person who cannot find happiness within them. So it's a very tough thing to do, where um, first of all, somebody cannot find happiness from the inside and they're looking for external sources of happiness. um, and that's a lost cause. Anybody who's been on this journey knows that's not how it works. There are people who've been through concentration camps, and there are people who've been through sexual abuse, the worst kind of sexual abuse, or physical disabilities or trauma, and they find happiness within them. They find it within them to be happy and content with what they have and who they are and what they're going through, and being hopeful that things would get better. But then there are people who have it much easier, at least tangibly, externally, but who have it much harder when it comes to finding happiness in life, and being grateful and being thankful and being optimistic and hopeful. So that might be. I'm just guessing here. I don't know. How the conversation would have went with his parents, but I'm thinking that's where they would have been coming from. That we know that you need emotional support. We just don't know how to give it to you. And I can identify with that. I can sympathize with that. I can empathize with that, because I've been there where somebody needed my attention, and I was willing and trying to give them emotional support. But beyond a certain point, I was unable to do so, and whatever I was giving was obviously not enough. So again, maybe this is what happened, but I can understand why for him it wasn't enough, and for him this would have been even more devastating, and pushed him down even further. But I think when he completes his journey, and the journey is never complete, but when he goes further in his journey, I think he would look back at it and be more understanding and sympathetic about what he got from his parents, which at this point in his life is so devastating for him.
And that has really affected a lot of aspects in my life, my personal, my romantic relationships, my friends, making social skills. I I want to feel love. I was in a very beautiful relationship with my girlfriend for 4.5 years, but we broke up last year. And she told me things that make sense, but they were hurtful. I was being told that I'm not my parents never made me responsible to take accountability of things, that I'm a negative person, that I bring negativity in her life, and that has also really affected me because I am a very hypersensitive person.
Okay, this ex-girlfriend seems to be a very clever person, a very smart person. So she wasn't just um, cognizant of his emotional state, but she was also communicating it to him, that you weren't brought up that way. So she was identifying gaps and communicating those gaps. I hope it wasn't just at the end when she was dumping him, but this was a conversation that they had throughout, and at some point it was just too much for her, I assume. Again, we don't know the details, but it does seem to me like she was spot on. Like uh, she knew him well. But this last part about I am a very hypersensitive person. I don't like that, and especially if he's been on a journey of self-discovery and learning about psychology and human psychology, and wellness, and getting better. If he's been on this journey for a year, to him to come up with the fact that I'm a hypersensitive person is disappointing, because he's applying a label to himself, and especially it's a label that I'm assuming he doesn't think that it's a positive thing. He thinks it's a weakness. And so if you think that somebody makes you weak and somebody makes you worse off, why would you adopt that label? I'm a very hypersensitive person. That's like uh, he runs the risk um, of giving in to his fate, in the sense that this is the way that I am, and that's not how humans work. Of course, different people have different personalities and they react differently to different emotions, but that is, you have to understand that that is just the way that you are at a point in time. It's not something that you have to be for the rest of your life. And by applying these labels, self applying these labels to yourself, runs the risk that you are kind of like resigning yourself to the fate that that label brings for you. So that was disappointing. I would have hoped that he would have learned that by now, but he apparently hasn't. But let's move on.
So, to understand myself deeply, for the last 1 year after the breakup, I dive deep into human psychology and try to understand myself, like why the fuck I am the way I am. And I realized that childhood trauma is a very big part of it, and it's none of my fault, but
Really, dude.
I'm dealing with the consequences of it, and it's really not fair. But I also realize that I can't change the past, so I need to work on the things that are in my hands right now, that how can I improve my life from now on, that I have all the these knowledge.
Okay, that's the only redeemable thing that he said in the past segment. Otherwise, I was giving up hope. So at least he realizes that he cannot change the past, but he can change the future. So that's good. But the lack of ownership and the lack of the lack of responsibility, taking responsibility for one's action, reeked throughout that whole segment. Like let me um
Am, and it's none of my fault.
like, how could you say this? Like if you and he specifically mentioned that he's dove down into understanding human psychology, and he talked about his girlfriend, what he communicated to him about his weakness, and the things that he lost out in his brought up. Um so so you know so so definitely it's not her fault. It's not the world's fault. It never is the world's fault. One of the things that you have to learn along the way is that everything is your fault. Like that's an an absolute principle that I live by. That everything is my fault. If there's anything wrong with my life, it's my fault. And if anybody is going to fix it, I am going to be the one who's going to fix it, or at least I'm gonna have to be the one that has to fix it. So everything is your fault is a beautiful and a wonderful principle to live by. Of course, it's not objectively true. That's not the point. Um, yeah. Andrew Tate actually said this quite well, that something being useful is infinitely more valuable than something being objectively true. And this principle is also falls under that category. It's something useful in the sense that it's actionable. If everything is your fault, and you have to be the one to fix it, then you can start thinking about fixing it. If it's something else's fault, if it's the world's fault, or it's the market's fault, or it's your parents' fault, or if it's your spouse's fault or your kid's fault, then it's their fault. You don't need to do anything. So just even if that statement is not objectively true, it's the only actionable statement. So something being actionable is infinitely more valuable than something being objectively true. So I would recommend it to anyone, and him in particular, to start living by this principle that everything is your fault and you have to fix it. It also ties, with the concept of only thinking about things that you can control. So I never think about things that I don't control. And by definition, other people are things that you don't control. You cannot change anybody's personality, minds, opinions, except over long periods of time, and except by a huge effort, and except by very little. So by definition, you don't control anybody else other than you. So you don't control the market. The only thing you control is yourself and how you think and the actions that you take. So you combine these two things together, and they're a very powerful catalyst for living an actionable life where you're taking ownership and you're not putting the blame on anybody other than yourself. So this is very disappointing to hear from him, but I hope it's something as if he ever gets to watch this video or somebody tags him in this video. I hope he takes this little bit away from this video, that I think one of the things that has put him in this situation, and one of the things that's still holding him back, is that he thinks whatever situation he's in is somebody else's fault, and nothing could be further from the truth, or at least nothing could be more harmful for him actually trying to fix this eventually. So he needs to change the way that he's thinking.
But I'm dealing with the consequences of it, and it's still not fair. But I also
Again, it's still not fair. Life is not fair. Life is not supposed to be fair. Now that this is me coming from my Islamic perspective, but this world is not fair, and it never will be, and it's never supposed to be. The hereafter is where the real justice would be done. But this is also, I may believe in that in an objective sense because I'm Muslim, but nobody needs to believe in that as an objective reality. But it's still a very useful guiding principle. Don't expect the world to be fair. And all disappointment and all heartbreak in life emanates from broken expectations or shattered expectations. So if you don't expect the world to be fair, you will not be disappointed when it's not fair, which is going to be the case for much of your life. Yeah, I think lots to be said about that statement as well. It's not fair. Yeah, you should not, especially a man, should never, a man who goes out in the world and has dealt with the world for any length of time, and he has already. So this is disappointing that he would utter such a statement.
realize that I can't change the past, so I need to work on the things that are in my hands right now. That how can I improve my life from now on, that I have all these knowledge. I also recently discovered that I am neurotic. My personality trait is INFP. My personality type is INFP. I also self-diagnose myself, which is, I know, is not a very good thing to do.
Yes.
But I self-diagnose myself as ADHD and BPD.
God. Uh, okay, okay. More of the same, much more of the same. He's not applying I thought he was applying one label of being a hypersensitive person. He just added like what, three more: BPD, bipolar, ADHD, attention deficit uh, disorder, um, hyperactivity disorder, yeah, ADHD. What else did he say? Um, INFP. Yeah. So yeah, I do believe in those. Was it the Myers-Briggs uh, personality types? I don't exactly remember mine, but the problem is not with diagnosing, what personality type you are. The problem with applying these labels is that again you resign yourself to. It's like labeling a box. Now, if this box is a carton of apples, it cannot be anything else, right? But human beings are not like that. Human beings are nothing like that. You could, you're a different person day to day. You're a different person from person to person. You're talking to, your friends. You're a different person. You're talking to your mother. You're an entirely different person. So human beings are complex, and by self-applying these labels, I think he's resigning himself to the fact that he's just the way that he is, and there's nothing that he can do about it, which is consistent with the previous segment, but it's very, very, very damaging. And yeah, somebody needs to tell him that yeah, just it's important to know who you are, but it's also important to know that that's not who you're supposed to be forever, or even tomorrow. So, a lot of people would give this advice: hey, dude, just be yourself. For women, it's even more common. Hey, honey, you're awesome. I don't know how they speak, but just be yourself. You're a queen. You're perfect the way that you are. And at least for guys, and I can speak for from a male perspective, it's the worst advice that you could give any person, or at least any guy. Just be yourself. It's the worst advice. You don't want to just be yourself. What if you're a bum? What if you're an idiot? What if you're physically weak? What if you're not well read? Um, you shouldn't just be yourself. You should be a better version of yourself every single day. Every single day, you should aspire to be better than what you were or how you were yesterday. So by him applying these labels, I fear that he's resigning himself to just being INFP, or just being ADHD, or just, first of all, I don't believe in ADHD and BPD. I'm sure there are clinically uh, observable and testable cases of bipolar disorder and even ADHD, but the vast majority of people who self-diagnose, or even people who are diagnosed clinically as ADHD, I fear are just on one end of a spectrum, and given a different environment, given a different lifestyle, given different education, or different feedback, would turn out to be very different. So I think we're quick to put labels on people. We should be very careful, and we should never be self-labeling, or even if we are, it should be only to understand yourself better today, not to resign yourself to a fate of being that person forever, which is what I fear he's doing.
So now the question arises that what should I do with all this information? I should go to therapy, which I did, but it didn't work out the way I wanted, or it didn't help me enough. I took a bunch of therapy sessions with a bunch of different therapists, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, I would have liked to hear why it didn't work. I think the problem that a lot of people have um, with their experience with therapy is that they're expecting too much. Like he said, it didn't work out. What does that mean? Does that mean that you didn't change, or you didn't change immediately, or you didn't change in a short enough period of time? Which is the way that it always is with everyone. And what therapy does is, again, it serves the same purpose as what his research does for him. That it shows him the path, and it shows him a reflection of his current state. It won't automatically change him, of course not. That's not possible. Nobody can do that for him. So yeah, this is a very common feedback that I've gotten from people who've been to therapy, and they come back and they say, it didn't work out. Like, why didn't it work out? Yeah, I'm still in the same situation. Of course, you're in the same situation, but it's supposed to just make you look at it differently. And I would have um, liked to hear if at least his therapy sessions did that for him, but I guess we'd never know.
when I'm also single child, so that has also affected me a lot. I don't know if I have told it in this video or not, but I'm also single child. That has also affected me a lot.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, I think having one child, only one child, is not a great idea. It's not a great idea for a variety of reasons. And yeah, my firstborn son, I only have sons, but my firstborn was a single child from my first wife. And now looking back at it, I would have much preferred if he had more children. um, First of all, the child doesn't get a sibling. That's such a big drawback in life, especially for a man. Not to have brothers, at least, is a big handicap in life. So yeah, men should always have brothers. It's such a big strength to have. But also, having sisters is such a wonderful opportunity to get to know the other gender, and how different it is, and how differently they approach life, and how differently they think about things. Plus, it's so much more fun to be able to play with your peers, or to take care of your siblings, or to be taken care of, and introduced. And the second child learns so much quicker than the first child, because they're spending time with a peer that is just slightly ahead of them. That's always the best way to learn. You don't get to learn from the leaders of the world. You get to learn from somebody who's just ahead of you in the curve. So yeah, so I'm sure being an only child made it more difficult for him. And also, from my own experience, I think it's bad for the parents as well. Yeah, you're too invested in one child. I think when you have more than one children, of course, you love them equally. You love them even more because it's so much more fun. But if you just have one, the mother is overly protective, because what happens if you lose, or something happens to your only child. So that is not a healthy place for a mother to be in. Where they're overprotective, and that's not ideal for the child as well, because they lose out on a lot of experiences that they would have had their mother not been that overprotective. So yeah, being an only child sucks.
Because I have always been taught to figure things out on my own, and that has
It's not the worst part of being. That's not a bad part at all. That's the best thing that could have happened to you, dude. Yeah, I think his takeaway from a particular situation is like kind of like the opposite of my takeaway. So I'm having a hard time identifying with him when he looks at a certain situation, and his lessons learned are like exactly the opposite of what mine would have been. But yeah, I guess everybody's different.
made me this person who doesn't trust people easily, has rejection issues, which I'm dealing with right now because I am being dumped after a 4.5 years of relationship.
Okay, first of all, I'm confused that how did being an only child result in him having trust issues? Because I would have assumed the opposite, that his parents would have been overly protective or supportive or loving. for him. So he didn't explain. So maybe we wouldn't know, or maybe we would know ahead in the video. But yeah, he said, "I am being dumped." So this is right off the bat of getting dumped. It appears, and that would make sense. So what the trigger is. So I was wondering how somebody just picks up the courage. So you need to be in a very special or unique state of mind to be able to put yourself out there into the world in public. I was scared shitless when I was uploading my first video, and it was not personal at all. But and he's putting this out as his first video. I'm assuming, it would have taken a lot of courage or a big cataclysmic or a catastrophic event, and apparently this is off right after getting dumped. So that makes sense.
I'm also people pleaser and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I know this video is going nowhere,
Uh,
but I'm trying. I'm trying to stay afloat. I'm trying to not give up. I'm trying to figure a way out to feel fulfilled in my life. For a first time, I have never feel fulfilled in my life. Either it's emotionally or socially or whatever. I'm not having panic attacks, but I'm just crying because I don't know. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying.
yeah, that's uh, that's very touching in the sense that you could feel, you could, you can, you can feel, actually physically feel his emotion, and there's so many emotions um, going through him right now, and 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 you can't help but think that it's such a courageous thing to do. Like I would never imagine of doing that let alone in public. I would have trouble doing that in front of a family member. So yeah, it takes a lot of courage. Um, and yeah, again, I think we all of you, if you're still watching, um, yeah, you feel that too, and it's such a good story in the sense it's that you feel that you always feel for the underdog, but you also feel for for yourself, and I'm sure uh, all of us can a part of we can see a part of ourselves in him, at some point in our life. So yeah, there cannot be a more powerful story than that, where you see yourself, and you see yourself in the struggle that you're watching.
Right. So the point of this video is that this is where I am currently right now in my life. I know there are a lot of people who have worse than me, who had worse than me, and I'm just putting it out there that I know that I will come out of this. I have to come out of this.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the fact that he realizes that no matter how bad he feels right now, and no matter how low of a point he is at currently in life, there's always people, there's innumerable, innumerable people out there who have it so much worse, and whose struggle is an order of magnitude greater than yours. And that's always both a humbling experience and both a humbling thought, as well as a very hopeful thought that, if they can go through life and they can repeat it, why can't you and why can't I? So yeah, I think at this point we're all in Camp Satya, and we're all, by this point in the movie, by this point in the video, at this point in the story, we're all rooting for him. This is where we're all cheering. And I don't know how this ends, and we don't know how this ends, but yeah, right now we're just rooting for the protagonist.
Because it's not very pretty to live a life like this where you don't know your emotions, where you don't know who you are as a person, where you don't know what you want to do in a career, where you don't know what are your priorities because you have always been a people pleaser. And the irony is that I still have no friends.
And he can find the humor and the irony in it, which again, which goes on to show his strength, that he's not leveraging to its potential because of some mental models that are holding him back. And but yeah, at least he's trying and he's on a journey, and I'm sure that once he that also something that you find in movies, that's why great movies are such that in all these uh, timeless story archetypes, where this hero, he starts off from humble beginnings, or from a low point, and then there comes a point where he or she realizes what he's made of, and before he conquers his demons, right? So we've seen this play out in real time, and that's why, as I said in the beginning, I see myself there, and I see all of us, in this journey and in this story, and it's fascinating to hear.
Yeah, there might be a lot of things that I need to discover about myself because that's a never ending thing. But I will not give up. Sometimes I feel suicidal, but I will never give up. I'm not that weak. I believe that there is a light at the end of this tunnel, and I
Yeah, for a moment I was, uh, again, suicidal thoughts are, um, well, there have been points in my life that I've had suicidal thoughts, so I don't think that's the end of the world. But yeah, it's good to hear that he's confident that he'll pull through, and yeah, and there's of course, you have to realize there's so much worse that you could be, that could happen to you, and so many people so much have it so much worse. So yeah. Um, I think I think he's one of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of young men. So he's just 29. He has his whole life ahead of him. Um, and there are millions upon millions of guys like him, who have lost all hope, and or who can't find the reason to feel fulfilled, and so they can't find the reason to keep on living, and the reason that is important is that, first of all, yeah, this this story can go a lot of ways, and he's amongst the stronger ones. If somebody who's weaker, who cannot put himself out there, or who cannot find it within himself to introspect and fix whatever is broken, um, those men are dangerous, and they're the ones who become serial killers and rapists, or any number of other you know um, scum of upon this earth. So yeah, this story could have gone, or could potentially go, a lot of in a lot of bad directions if he was somebody else. So it's important to, but everybody's not like him, and there are people who break, and there are people who break, and then they want to burn the whole world down with them. So it's important to understand. First of all, that's where it starts, to understand, what affects these men, and then to help them, to help fix the problem. In this case, it's just a lot of small things. It's just a lot of little things that he tells himself, that he just needs to tell a different story to himself, and that would just fix the way that he looks towards life, and going forward, and even looking back. But for a lot of other people, it would take much more. So it's important to talk about this. It's important to understand this, and 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 again, what's missing from a lot of men's life is a place to talk about it, or an institution to talk about it, or a forum, or a ritual. So I can remember that even a generation back, men would get together, and men would get together in the markets, and they would have these get-togethers, and even among family. And that's all kind of evaporated in the modern life, where you simply don't have time. Like, I know a lot of couples just try to find their whole world, within that relationship, and even that's a problem, I think. Yes, your spouse has a place in your life, but your spouse is not the only relationship that you have in your life. So there's a place for him or her. There's a place for your parents. There's a place for your friends, and there's a place for other men in your life, that you are able to interact with and share with, and share your own experiences with. That is missing, and I think, that's a problem that needs to be solved, and I've been trying to figure out how we can solve that problem, and I've been trying to solve that problem in my own life, to no avail. It's just that everybody's so busy, including myself. How do you find the time to interact with other men? And men don't talk as much as well. So women, when they get together, even if they get like 30 minutes together, they would just keep talking away, and that's very valuable for them, and that's useful for them. But men also have this disability of being able to, first of all, just talk in general. We want to talk about stuff. We don't want to talk about ourselves. But also, being able to share things, like of course some things are sensitive, like regarding your family, but we kind of like overdo it as well. Plus, there are no natural environments where we can be, we can talk about stuff, or we can talk about ourselves, and we can talk about our difficulties. So most of our get-togethers, so whether they're school friends or university friends, or even family, tend to be catch-up sessions. So I call them catch-up sessions. You're meeting them, So for me, it's my university friends meeting every 6 months or so, and so when you meet somebody after such a long time, it's just a catch-up session. You say, hey, what's going on? Okay, what happened? How are the kids, and how's the job, and what are you thinking of doing, and how's the business? You're just catching up, and then you leave, and that doesn't leave room for much else. And of course, there are also big gatherings, so you cannot have intimate discussions, or even if not intimate, deep discussions in a big gathering. It needs to be shallow. It needs to be superficial, because you just have enough time to catch up. So that's why I call them catch up sessions. So there are no forums for men to talk with men other than these catch-up sessions, and they're just not well equipped to deal with things that really matter in your life. And also, after you get married, you have very little opportunities to meet with other men, other people of the same gender. So either it's couples, so you get to meet other couples, which is kind of like the worst thing that the worst forum for discussing. Say, for example, if you're having trouble in your marriage, a couple get together is the worst place to talk about it. Of course, you're not going to talk about it. So I think men are missing a forum or an opportunity to talk to other men, and not just about business, and not just about the challenges of life in general, and challenges that they're having with their kids or with their even at the job. Things that are a level deeper than what you would generally discuss in a catch-up session. I think that forum is missing, and I haven't been able to figure out how to incorporate such a forum in my own life. I'm open to hearing thoughts from you guys on whether, first of all, do you agree that this is something that is missing from modern life for men, where men get to talk to other men about things that are really meaningful? And if so, how do you think? Have you tried to go about trying to solve this problem? And if so, how did that go? And what worked and what didn't work, and what you think might work? Would love to hear from you guys.